Wrestling with wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
See, JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Definitely not his, the barn burner that Leif Cassidy and Ty Raleigh Singh was, but, we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
Hager kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Zelina Vega on a pole match for that to be.
It is in the mail, my good sir. Oh, it wasn't. Paul.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely.
And then you can listen to us too. We're off to a rough start.
This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kirk.
I'm Roland Pulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And today we're breaking down WCW Superbrawl 6, which took place February 11th of 1996.
Break it down.
Break it down.
We're all crotch chopping each other for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Hey, I got suspended for crotch chopping, all right? I'm not going to say his last name, but thanks, Scott, for ratting on me when I went like this to you and freaking got suspended for doing that. Do you know what that means? Obviously, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't know what it means.
No, enlighten me. What does it mean? Oh, man, that's what it means? Oh, I still want you to do it.
No, still as a grown adult, there's many times you walk into a store, you just want to be like, yeah, you know what? Suck it, buddy.
Yeah. Tim and I had pulled back the curtain a little bit. We bowl. So, Pete Weber, he for whatever reason, that was one of his go-to things. And he still does it. He's like 60 out there crotch chopping. So
that's great.
But this show was 15 years ago. Or no, 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Bad math there for a minute. Yeah, no.
All right, Scott's down there.
Right, the TNA, infamous TNA promo. But yeah, no, it was funny because it doesn't seem that long ago when you think about it, and then you go back and watch it, and you're like, wow, this was a while ago.
Or you see some people who are unfortunately dead now, and you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
This is right before the NWO too, so the NWO hadn't even been a thing yet.
Well, and they literally, like you said, 96, July, went Bash at the Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the Mega Powers reformed. Weird ass handshakes they did. But yeah, no, it's, you can tell that WCW is starting to get some momentum. A lot of it is on the back of former WWF wrestlers.
Yeah. So we'll get started. There's quite a few matches to break down. There was 4 on the main event show, which is essentially their pre-show back then. So we'll run those down real quick. We're starting off with the Road Warriors, Hawk Animal getting a win over Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck. Really short match, only 2 minutes and 7 seconds long. I'm assuming this was pretty much just a Road Warriors squash match.
More than likely. It's, they're on the show later. So maybe they felt like one team had to pull double duty, so they had to make the other team pull double duty.
Yeah.
I know we'll get to that, but there's other than getting the fans going for when they first come through the door, I don't see the point in even having that match on the card. But yeah, it was probably a quick squash.
You had to get rid of Jack Swagger Sr. there, Bunkhouse Bick, who would later be Jack Swagger Sr. It's 10 years ago when he choke slammed him and betrayed him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I saw that too. I was looking at the card that we didn't get, and I was like, at first I'm like, oh, that's no, that's not really that sad. We didn't miss much besides maybe the next one that you're going to say, Tim. That's probably the only one that would be worth watching.
Yeah, some WCW names that you probably recognize. It's Hugh Morris getting a win over Chris Kanyon. Again, another quick one, 2.5 minutes here. Again, it's kind of hard to break these down if we weren't able to see them, but I would imagine this probably was a similar squash match with Hugh Morris getting the win.
Quick question for both of you: who's better than Kanyon?
Nobody better than Kanyon.
This is even before that gimmick, but Bill DeMott, for all his wrestling legacy and all his controversial stuff that happened, made it happen when he was training wrestlers and stuff. A very solid bigger guy, very solid talent for some of the stuff. He was not as big as
Literally.
Vader. Right. He wasn't as big as Vader and stuff, but he was a larger guy doing stuff that larger guys you shouldn't do. I think realistically he's closer to Keith Lee's size. That's a little smaller, but I mean closer to that size. So it's impressive to still see Keith Lee do stuff like that. But he might be one of the more underrated bigger guys, especially in the WCW era.
Someone who loves puns, just his name being Hugh Morris always popped me as a kid. I was like, that's great. But I always used to get him mixed up with Bam Bam when I was younger. Him and Bam Bam Bigelow, because they have very similar look.
Mhm.
And I look back, I'm like, how? Because Bam Bam's got those tattoos on his head. I don't understand how I got it mixed up. But then, like you said, it's that size, because WCW kind of liked going for either trying to copy one of WWF's gimmicks with their version of it, like I'm sure we'll talk about later, or just in general, like you said, they just like the bigger men. Like when Van Vader was there, they wanted those, big men. And right now for Death Count, we're up to 2. Just to point that out.
Sadly, that it's like I said, 25 years ago, and half these guys are dead.
Yeah. We're actually up to 3 because both the Road Warriors are dead now.
True. I'm ready to open that wound.
If you like puns, you got to remember General Yuji Rection too.
Yep.
And I'm sure you guys know this, but just for our fans that don't, Hugh Morris was the first person Goldberg defeated in his long winning streak.
Had to start somewhere.
Hey,
you know what though? Goldberg isn't winning much anymore, which is it's too bad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, shucks. But anyway.
Oh man. All right. Next up on the main event show was Big Bubba Rogers, who you may know as the Big Boss Man, and VK Wall Street, who is IRS.
He is also known as Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas's father.
Yes.
I was gonna say, so we have Jack Swagger's dad, and then we have Bray Wyatt's dad, except one's a shoot and one's a work.
One's legitimately his father.
They're gonna get a win over a couple guys I've actually never heard of, Joey Maggs and Craig Pittman, in just over 2 minutes here.
That's Sergeant Craig Pittman to you.
I'm so glad someone else remembered that.
When it comes to like anniversaries and birthdays, horrible. When it comes to bad wrestling, I got it. Probably wasn't much of a match here, honestly.
No.
It was probably it was 2 minutes, so it wasn't we didn't miss much, put it that way.
No, not many people were fighting for Joey Knight, Joey Maggs, whatever the heck he called himself, WCW. He kept changing his name. And let's be honest, Big Bubba Rogers probably really wasn't a draw for them either.
No, Ray Traylor, rest his soul. I think he was also in the Hugh Morris category of a guy who was a bigger guy that could go, especially some of the stuff he did early days in WWF. When he was actually a little bit bigger than anything, and he did some impressive stuff.
Oh no, he was a great worker. Unfortunately, he was just one of those stuck in the mid card role for a while. And I think he was just saddled with terrible gimmicks. But the last incarnation of the Big Boss Man, the '90s, late '90s up to WrestleMania 15 Big Boss Man with a few of the Big Show, that was the gimmick that I think he got over. Took a crappy gimmick and got it over. So he definitely could work. I agree with that.
I remember when he crashed the Big Show's dad's funeral, and Big Show jumps on the casket as Boss Man's dragging it away.
Or when he fed Pepper to Al Snow and he fed him his dog.
Definitely making the best of a bad situation there.
Yeah.
Right?
So are we counting the dog as the death count now?
Well, he wasn't on the show, but we're up to 4 right now.
I just wanted to make sure.
Our last main event match, I think this was a great technical wrestling match if I had to guess here. You have Jim Duggan and the Loch Ness Monster.
He's Dax Calhoun.
Yep.
This was there's no time on it, probably because it never even started. It was probably just, a mugging type match, because what are you going to do with a guy that size?
And it's a double disqualification, it says, so they probably just both fell on each other, and they're like, and it's WCW, so when you're over the top rope, it was disqualification in some of their matches, so
yeah.
Who knows?
That's probably why they put Savage in a cage. They didn't want him doing that over the top rope neck breaker over the top rope there, so they wanted to keep him not qualified. But at least now we're on to the main card, and honestly, before we go too much further, the main card here has some really big names, and it is unfortunate that it was kind of a letdown for some of these matches. I know we haven't reviewed them all yet or anything, but looking at the names, this should have been a great show, and it was just so-so, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree. So we start off the main card with the street fight between the Nasty Boys and Public Enemy. This match went about just under 8 minutes here. This was just a brawl in the concession stand, basically.
7 minutes too long.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a violent match for what it was. It was definitely early days of the hardcore type matches for WCW anyways. I mean, we'd seen, stuff like this on ECW and stuff before this, but this is kind of one of the earlier, their attempts at trying to branch out to that brand of wrestling. And for what it wasn't terrible, but again, it's tough to tell. It seemed like they had legit heat towards the end of the match at each other. I don't know if there was a spot where something went wrong or whatever, but at the end, the match was over. They looked like they were still fist fighting each other at one point after the match was over. So I don't know if it was legit or it wasn't. Again, for the Nasty Boys, Public Enemy is one of those guys, the team that has that aura of being kind of like a hardcore team. And the Nasty Boys are probably hardcore before hardcore was a thing. You think back to WWF days, the Nasty Boys always had that edge. So again, it was a decent way to start. The crowd there probably loved it based on what it was, but I mean, it didn't really do a whole lot for them.
There were some parts where you could tell they were gassed 2 minutes in. They were swinging that table because the Public Enemy has to have a table. That was their gimmick before the Dudleys. Like, they had to have tables. They're swinging that broken piece of the table, and Sags looks like he got hit by a bulldozer, and he barely made contact with him. And I don't know. Besides, Hogan's knows best for the Nasty Boys, and the APA beating down Public Enemy. I don't know a lot about them. I'm kind of glad I don't, because this was terrible.
I think the best part was Dusty Rhodes on commentary. He kept what was that word he kept repeating? Was it plundering?
Yeah. Yep. That's it. Get into some plunder.
Oh, he's grabbing more plunder in there. It's probably his lunch.
Bobby Heenan's like, that's what you use in the toilet. Oh, plunder, not plunger. Coming from a son of a plumber.
Yeah.
I do like that when he grabs the trash can, he goes, that's probably his lunch.
That was a good spot too.
Next up is a singles match for the television championship and for the services of the Diamond Doll and for $6.6 million. It's Johnny B. Bad with the Diamond Doll getting a win over DDP Diamond Dallas Page in 15 minutes. I think this was a decent wrestling match here. Maybe went a little too long for me, but I thought it was all right.
I can't. It's Mark Marrow somehow getting the win over DDP for Kimberly. What the hell was this? Like, what was this?
And $6.6 million. This is actually the last pay-per-view for Mark Marrow as Johnny B. Bad before he came to the WWF. I think his character had run its course. I think you can only do so much with a Little Richard knockoff type of character, and I think it had run its course. DDP still wasn't DDP yet. I mean, he, name-wise was, but he wasn't the guy that everybody knows. I know Mongo's probably a little biased because of DDPY, but it definitely was too long, I think. There was parts in the match where you could tell both men were just like, okay, let's get over with it. Like, let's go. It was not a terrible match. I will say that it was, for what it wasn't bad. It also wasn't great. It was just, again, this whole card was pretty much so-so to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just had no chemistry. Like, either one of them. Like you said, this is DDP being early, and not just DDPY, but I was always a huge fan of DDP on WCW because I just liked when he was that cigar smoking asshole. And then this one, he was that with the weird roses. I didn't really get this gimmick. It was kind of a interesting one for him, but there was no chemistry. Like, there's points where I can't call him Johnny Bad. It's a terrible name. So there's points when Mark Marrow, he's just shoving him into the corner and they're both in a rest hold because they just are gassed. It was, like you said, it was just so-so. It had so much potential, but it was so-so because he was the television champion, which was like their workhorse title. So I don't understand why. I don't know. It was just seems like it was kind of a waste of a match just to show the title on the pay-per-view.
Well, and then ironically enough, what was it last week or the week before? There was actually DDP was actually doing a workout with Mark Merrow.
Right.
So I thought that was just funny that we covered it. And Merrow looks great. I mean, they both do for their age and stuff like that. But yeah, just bad chemistry. I think, like I said, Johnny B. Bad was on his way out, so I don't think he cared a whole lot. I don't know if he knew he was going yet, but I think he knew that the character was pretty much done. You only do so much with it. And like I said, the match itself was okay.
Next up is a tag team match for the tag team titles. The winner of this match will have to compete later on against the Road Warriors. You have Sting and Lex Luger getting a win over Harlem Heat in about 12 minutes here. Their storyline here is there's some tension going on between Sting and Lex Luger. Lex Luger's really reluctant to even get into the match, but they do pull off the win. Again, these are, you look at the names on this match and you would think it'd be a really good match. I don't honestly remember this one that well. I mean, it wasn't really memorable to me.
No, and sadly, this could have been a match that stole the show, but really all it did was set up the Road Warrior run in the for Luger to win cheaply and Sting afterwards to pretend like he didn't know what happened, to play oblivious to the fact that there was tension from Luger winning. That was the biggest issue, is that Sting didn't like the way Luger was winning matches. They were cheating to win matches, and that was their big tension between the two of them. So really all that did was further the storyline between, because LOD wanted to face Sting and Luger, not the Harlem Heat. So that, it was what it was. It, again, could have been a really good match, and they kind of watered it down a bit. Again, another match that was just so-so to me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Sting didn't even really get in the match until almost the end of it. And like you said, he had to play the whole, what's going on card. I can't see what's going on in front of him. So it's definitely suffered for some bad booking. I mean, I think Harlem Heat versus the Road Warriors probably would have been the better chemistry-wise, because those are two legit tag teams. This is another one of those, the one thing I hate in wrestling the most, the throwing together tag team just for the storyline of having them fight each other eventually.
Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler.
Yep.
All right, there was something in my throat there. My bad.
Yeah, something stuck in your hole.
Yeah, it's in my hole. Charlotte Flair, Asuka. But yeah, it's they seem to they repeat booking, and it's stupid. It's when they have nothing for people to do. Like, what were they gonna have Sting do? He wasn't in the U.S. title picture. He wasn't in the world title picture. So let's throw him with Luger and let him be tag champs.
Right.
Next up was another title match, this time for the U.S. heavyweight titles. We get three title matches in a row here. You have Konnan, who's the champion, getting a win over the one-man gang in about 7.5 minutes. To be honest with you, I never remember the one-man gang being in WCW, so this was a little bit of a surprise when we went through the card. And but again, just another so-so match for me.
I'm hoping that next week's episode will have the one-man gang on it too.
Yes.
Maybe 3 straight episodes with one-man gang. I don't think he's on Fastlane 2016. Maybe they have some weird stat where he shows up, but at this point, his career and character had kind of run its course. He was still a big bruising guy, but he couldn't really do much in the ring. You want to talk about styles clashes between Merrow and DDP. This was a styles clash between Konnan. This is when Konnan was still like the barbarian, the warrior. Mm-hmm. Well, and he had that character from Mexico where he was dressed, it's not K-Dog Konnan. So it was, had it been K-Dog Konnan later, it might have been a better match to watch, but it was just Konnan had to go in reverse pretty much to keep up with one man gang. And I say keep up to more or less slow down. But, again, another match that was just bleh. It was just there.
I mean, yeah, it seems like just from the start, not to skip too much ahead, it's not going to get better for a few more, matches. And then, this match too, and I was like, oh man, we're really going to have another show, almost 2 shows in a row where we have to mention the African Dream. Like, we're going to have 2 shows with this guy. Like, he like you said, at this point in his career, he just could not work. It was like he was wrestling in mud, and you could tell Konnan was getting frustrated because he'd want to go one speed, and then one man gang speed, Turtle was just hindering him.
Yeah. Yep. And think about at this time, all the people that were in the Dungeon of Doom, they were all washed up WWF guys.
Yeah.
It's pretty, other than the Giant, they were literally all washed up WWF guys. And that's why One Man Gang was there. He was in the Dungeon of Doom, and he was just a big bruising. To have a wrestling match with that guy is pointless.
Mm-hmm.
He should have been on the pre-show.
Next up, things start to get a little weird here. We have a I Respect You strap match, which is basically a combination of a strap match and an I Quit match. But they never even put the strap on, so I don't even. Oh, there we go.
Oh man, this time, yes. That's like that's our second episode in a couple of weeks where we mentioned the word word. I ain't saying it this time. I said it last time.
You want to talk about the One Man Gang and strap-ons? This is the show for you.
Thankfully, we're on Spotify, so we don't really have to worry about maybe censoring ourselves a little more. Because if you like strap, dude.
Yeah, if you like strap-ons, wait till next week. No.
I mean, Vince Russo will be coming in a few years to WCW, so there'll probably be a strap-on a pole match somewhere down the line.
To go with the Viagra on a pole.
Thank you. I was glad you got that.
Yeah.
So you have
not to cut you off, Tim, but that was good. But yeah, no, it this led to Pillman leaving. This was where the storyline goes, according to Eric Bischoff from Bischoff's book, was that they had the idea to get Pillman fired. They had to make it legit, so they legitimately fired him so he could go to ECW, come up with this loose cannon gimmick, and then come back. Turns out Pillman said, screw you. He went to ECW, then went to WWF. So it actually backfired on Bischoff. And like I said, they were going to fire him as storyline, but they said it would be a better idea to fire him legitimately so that way people wouldn't read through the storyline.
Yeah, and it's funny too because the network censors it, so I looked it up because I do remember this where he infamously grabs the mic and I respect you, Booker man. Him basically admitting that Kevin Sullivan, breaking the fourth wall here, was the head booker at the time of WCW. So like you said, and I think he talked about in A3 Weeks too. The whole setup of him going to ECW to kind of, like you said, establish the loose cannon gimmick, which was his best gimmick overall. It's a shame that, a year later he would pass away from a heart condition because that gimmick was over. And that's, he went from the Holly Blondes to Flying Brian to this was the gimmick and this was great. And then, like you said, he had to get legit fired to go to ECW. And then Vince went, hey, I'll give you a payday. He went, okay, sorry, Eric, screw you.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where everything's flawed too, because I don't know if Bischoff realized that ECW was working with WWF.
Right.
I don't know how intertwined they were at this point, but if they were working together, it's a no-brainer for Paulie to push him to WWE versus pushing him back towards WCW.
So after this match, then Arn Anderson comes out in his golf attire.
Yeah.
The grossest shorts you'll ever see on Arn Anderson.
What's funny though is that both this match and then the Pillman, the 1 minute of Pillman shooting on Kevin Sullivan, they were potatoing each other.
Oh,
and it continued into the Arn Anderson match though, because Arn Anderson, they were throwing some heat at each other too. So I don't know if it was to try to save the show. So Arn's like, screw it, I'll just go with you, because I don't think they had legitimate heat at this point. I don't know if because Arn still talks highly of Kevin Sullivan to this day. So I don't know what, if that was they were like, well, this match is supposed to be physical, so let's throw some at each other. But this was the most real and most exhilarating part of the pay-per-view up till this point.
Right. And they didn't, even the announcers had no idea what the fuck was going on. Sorry. Pardon my French. No one knew what was going on. Cause I knew what was going to happen, but to see the reaction was great. Like Tony Schiavone even would be like, yeah, he just said, I respect you. Like he was totally confused. Like, why is this match over in 30 seconds? And no one knew what was going on. And then even when Arn Anderson comes out, he comes out like, oh, I have to wrestle. All right, I guess I'll just wrestle right now. Clearly he was wearing athletic shorts under his pants that he just stripped off in gorilla position.
Hey, well, at least he kept that outfit on for when he came back out for the match later.
Yeah.
He didn't get to his wrestling trunks for that, but it was like I said, you're breaking the fourth wall, or like Mongo said, you're breaking the fourth wall to show everybody that there was legit heat with Kevin Sullivan's booking to begin with, and that's what you have when you have somebody wrestling and booking. You're always going to have people that think they're out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, Kevin Sullivan never amounted to a pile of dog shit, so I don't know why anybody would think that, because Sullivan never was pushing for the world title. He never like it wasn't like he was pushing himself. So that's what I mean when I say that, is that he definitely wasn't pushing his thing, because if he was, he'd be like a 12-time world champion.
Yeah, he basically he always gave himself mediocre gimmicks. Like, wasn't he like a voodoo person or something at one point? Like,
Yeah.
So he always had strange gimmicks, and like you said, I don't think he was so much booking. I think he just wasn't a good booker, and I think he was more of a good worker. He would have been better as more of an agent, I think, than a booker.
Right.
Next up is the tag team match for the World Tag Team titles between Sting and Luger against the Road Warriors. This match went way too long for a double countout finish, I think. It was 14 minutes, and then a double countout again. They're playing up the tension between Sting and Luger here. I get just another one. We're like a broken record, but it's just so.
Yeah, they it's unfortunate again that they had the names that they have in this, especially this match, where like nothing came of it. You look at the card, you're like, oh, that should be a good match, and even the match itself wasn't good. Like there was no highlights in the match where I was like, oh, that was a neat spot. It was just, let's get to the count out 15 minutes later.
Yeah, like Tim said, to echo your point, it was just way too long for that finish. Looking at this card, I remember we were talking on the group text. It was like, okay, there's some good cards on here. Sting and Lex Luger, Road Warriors, Hall of Famers going at it. That should be fun. It wasn't fun.
No, and unfortunately, like I said, you look at the names, you're like, oh, this should be a great show, and it was so at best.
Glad we didn't have to pay for it. Thank you to the network, because I would have wanted money back. Even back then, I was like, can I have my money back? Because this, if you want to talk about the most bait and switch card I've ever seen, where it's like, check out this card. You're like, yeah, I can't. Oh, that's how you delivered. Awesome. Yeah. Which really goes to show you that you can have all the talent in the world, but if you book it terribly or you don't get the right people to pair up well, it's not going to work. WWE suffered from that recently. AEW suffered from that. That's the problem, is you need to push your talent the right way, and have them have the right chemistry in the ring, or else it's just not going to work.
Yeah. So next up is part 1 of our double steel cage main event. This one is for the World Heavyweight title between Ric Flair and Randy Savage. Randy Savage is coming in as the champion. Ric Flair is accompanied by a woman here. Randy Savage was Miss Elizabeth. This one, I expected so much more out of this one. I thought it went way too long. It was 19 minutes. I'll admit I was kind of falling asleep through this one. The finish was all right. There was a swerve finish where Miss Elizabeth hands Ric Flair her shoe, and he hits Savage with him, becomes a new world champion. I think this is his 13th title at this time. But again, just way too long and just under-delivered for me.
It's the swerve, bro. Yeah, unfortunately, it was a very bad match. There wasn't. Again, it was 19 minutes of leading up to a real shitty finish. Mm-hmm. This pay-per-view had legitimately probably the most crappiest finish matches I've ever seen. And they're notable for having the dusty finishes, which are finishes that don't actually happen. They're DQs, countouts, schmaz finishes. This card, I mean, how many matches were actually won clean?
Yeah,
like 2. And then it's unfortunate because you have guys like Savage and Flair who both, even though they were older at this time, could still go. I mean, Savage and especially Flair, they both wrestled 10 years after this, so, and they were still serviceable in the ring. And literally all this led up to was that swerve of Elizabeth joining the Horsemen.
The storytelling, I agree, ruined this match. It could have been such a better match, and I don't understand also too, side note, why does Ric Flair have to pull his pants down every friggin' match he has? Like, I've seen more of Ric Flair's butt in my lifetime than I ever want to. I don't know what he does more, if he bleeds or moons the crowd more. Like, I really don't know at this point. Even at WrestleMania when he got retired by Shawn Michaels, he pulled his pants down one last time. So that's the sad thing. That's what sticks out for this match, is just I had to see his ass again. And instead of a solid match, like you said, Randy Savage still could go. Ric Flair could obviously still go. They weren't at their peak, but they were still at the top, serviceable, like you said. And then the storytelling just kind of derailed this match, kind of took the steam out of the match of what could have been.
Yeah, and you would think that if Flair was going to stick his ass out all the time, he'd at least tan it the same color as the rest of his body.
Exactly. Like Sheamus facing it right there.
Yeah, it's like Hogan up top, Sheamus down bottom.
Yep.
Weathered leather and a jar of mayonnaise.
Well, speaking of Hogan, he's in our next steel cage match. This is our main event between Hulk Hogan and the Giant. The Giants are coming by Taskmaster and Jimmy Hart. I didn't like this one because the storyline here.
That sums it up. That sigh right there sums it up. Both Mongo and I were laughing. I had to laugh out loud. Sorry. That summed it up though. Not to cut you off, but that summed it up.
Well, what they were doing, the storyline here was that the Big Show, the Giant, is Andre's son, which I never liked that storyline either. But they basically did the same spots as the WrestleMania 3 match. I mean, they did that thing where Hogan went for a slam and the Giant falls on him, almost gets the pin. They just did so many spots from the WrestleMania 3 match that it just, I don't know, it wasn't original to me. And yeah, this really disappointing way to end the show.
What's new is old, brother.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what they did in the booking meeting for this match. If they just watched the video of Andre and Hogan, they're like, okay, so at 4 minutes we do this, at 6 minutes, 8, done. Match is over.
Yeah. And it's a shame too, because the Giant in WCW, if you go back pretty much after this, like the next couple months, he was actually pretty agile. I remember he used to hit missile drop kicks off the turnbuckle. He would do some moves. So Paul White, for all his credit, he could move in WCW, and they tried to, like Tim said, sell it as this is Andre the Giant's son, and do the, he's big and he can't be flipped over. And I'm like, but the week before he was jumping off the turnbuckle doing a drop kick, so that whole mystique you guys have already ruined. So, and then Hogan,
you got to remember, not to cut you off, you got to remember this MFer died at the last pay-per-view. He got thrown off a roof and came back. So.
Yeah, and can we talk about how Hogan couldn't even climb out of the top? Like he struggled to get out of the cage.
Where are the footholds, brother?
Like his leg kept falling, and the camera had to cut to the Giant because they didn't want to show his leg trying to he couldn't swing his ham hock over the top.
It'd be like me trying to climb it right now. But yeah, no, it's again, what could have been. This could have been a good match if they had made it their own. I'm not saying it would have been a 50-star match at the Tokyo Dome, but it would have been a pretty good match and a main event. But instead, they copied. They had some cage spots, but they copied a match from WrestleMania 3.
And Hogan can't hit with a chair, man. Those chair shots were the softest thing I've ever seen in my life.
He's closing his eyes to do it. He's like,
one guy literally didn't know how to react. He gets hit and he took the nastiest bump, and I'm like, but you didn't get hit. And Hogan just kind of looks like, all right, I'll keep going. And he almost just walked into the next guy with the chair. Like, what the hell is that?
They made they encouraged it. They encouraged Hogan to be like, oh, that looked good, brother. I'll do it again. Like, no, don't do that. That's horrible. But yeah, this could have been a really good match. Like you said, Paul White at this age, at this stage of his career, was probably the most agile guy that size I've ever seen. Like you said, missile drop kicks. He even in this, he's so slim. He's not, he let himself go when he went to WWF when he first got the big money and let himself, he's lost a lot of that weight since. But you look here, he is a slim, trim, 400-pound guy, whereas he comes to the WWE, he turns into a 500-pound blob.
I agree.
So that's our rundown of Superbrawl 6. It's hard to give her. I'll probably give this a 2.5, maybe, for a rating.
Just because it was all over the card, I'm going to give it a 4.
I think I'm going to get a 3 because we didn't even get 3 counts in this. So I'm going to be generous and give the only 3 that this thing probably had.
I know I gave it a 4 and I probably overshot the clean finishes by 2. So,
so between us, we're at like a 2.5. So which is generous.
Yeah. So yeah, Tim hit it right on the nose about it. Realistically, it was me regrading it a 4 is more play on the 4 horsemen than actually giving it a 4. It's it was not pretty, and it could have been, like you said, you look at the names on this card, it could have been a great show, and they didn't deliver. They failed to deliver on a card that could have been really, really good.
So next week, guys, hopefully we'll have a little bit of a better show to discuss. We're going back 5 years ago to 2016 to discuss Fastlane. So looking forward to breaking that down. I know Mongo will be seeing it for the first time.
He didn't want to admit it on our group chat. He's like, I hate to tell you guys, I've never seen that.
I think it was just one of those pay-per-views where it came up and I was like, I just didn't get excited for it, so I never really watched it. But it's not because of, a bad card or anything. It was just one of those, I'm not interested. And then it was just one of those, now it's 5 years later. How the hell is it 5 years later?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some shows, though, that, like, back in the day that I don't remember seeing either. Like, I mean, you go back to, 06, 07, 08, 09, in that era, that there's shows I missed, too, just because, like you said, you still had to buy the pay-per-views. So if you didn't have the money or didn't think it was worth buying it, you wouldn't buy it.
Agreed.
So Fastlane 2016 is coming up for you guys next week. We'll be back next Saturday at 5. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Fulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
Brother.
I hope you're all having a nice day.